There comes a time in every person's life when they whisper a question into the silence. God, are you there? Maybe it's in the darkest night of your soul, when the weight of life is too heavy to carry. Maybe it's in a hospital room, or in a moment of despair when no one else seems to understand. Or maybe, just maybe, it's in a quiet moment when you wonder if there's something more to life. My friend, I'm here to tell you that not only is God there, He is listening, and He is waiting for you to talk to Him. Today, I'm going to show you how to talk to God in a way that is real, powerful, and life-changing. But before we go any further, I need you to do something. Stay with me, don't walk away, because by the end of this message, you will not only know how to speak to God, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that He is speaking to you. We live in a world filled with noise, distractions, and uncertainty. People are searching for answers in all the wrong places. But there is one place, one voice, one presence that is always there, God. And He is waiting for you to reach out to Him. Some people think, why should I pray? I'm not a preacher. I'm not a saint. Will God even hear me? Listen carefully. God is not looking for perfect people. He is looking for honest hearts. He hears the whisper of the brokenhearted, the cry of the desperate, and even the silent prayers that no one else knows about. Talking to God doesn't require a script. You don't need fancy words or religious training. Jesus Himself said, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. Just come as you are." Speak from your heart. He already knows you, but He longs to hear from you. Many say, I don't feel God. I don't hear Him. But prayer isn't about feelings. It's about faith. You don't need to see the sun to know it's shining. You don't need to feel God to know He is there. You simply need to believe. Some people are afraid to tell God the truth. They think they must hide their doubts, their fears, their failures. But God already knows. The Bible is filled with people who cried out to Him with anger, sorrow, and even confusion, and He met them in their honesty. God doesn't want rehearsed prayers. He wants real prayers. When you talk to God, expect an answer. It may not come in a voice from heaven, but He speaks through His Word, through circumstances, through the peace in your heart. Open your eyes. He is speaking right now. My friend, you don't have to wonder how to talk to God. You just have to start right here, right now. No matter where you are, no matter what you've done, lift your heart to Him. He is listening. He has always been listening. And He will answer. Would you take that step today? Would you talk to Him right now? Because I promise you this, once you begin talking to God, you will never be the same again. Life moves fast, and the world around us is filled with noise, voices demanding our attention, distractions pulling us in every direction. There's a constant flood of responsibilities, pressures, and uncertainties. We plan, we work, we struggle, we try to figure things out on our own. But then there comes a moment when everything else fades into the background, and we are left with the undeniable realization that we cannot do this alone. That is when prayer becomes not just important, but urgent. There is something deep inside every human soul that longs for connection with something greater, something beyond ourselves. It's why people seek meaning, why they ask the hard questions, why in times of crisis, even those who never thought about God suddenly find themselves whispering a desperate prayer. But why do we wait until life is crumbling before we reach out? Why do we push God to the background when He should be our first source of strength? The truth is, many people see prayer as a last resort, when in reality, it should be the first thing we turn to in every situation. The urgency of prayer is not just about emergencies. It is about realizing that every moment of our lives we need God's presence, His wisdom, His guidance. There are battles we cannot fight on our own. burdens too heavy for us to carry, decisions that require divine wisdom. And yet, so often, people try to navigate life without prayer. They lean on their own understanding. They rely on their own strength. And then they wonder why they feel empty, lost, and exhausted. But the moment we begin to see prayer as essential rather than optional, everything changes. Imagine waking up each day knowing that you are not alone, that you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. Imagine facing challenges with the confidence that God is walking beside you, hearing your every cry, seeing your every struggle. That is what prayer does. It connects us to the source of life, to the one who holds all things in his hands. Some people hesitate to pray because they feel unworthy or uncertain if God will listen. But prayer is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about coming before God just as we are, in our brokenness, in our doubts, in our need. He does not turn away those who seek him. He does not require fancy words or long speeches. A simple, sincere cry from the heart is enough to reach him. When we grasp the urgency of prayer, we stop seeing it as an occasional ritual and start seeing it as the very breath of our spiritual lives. Just as the body cannot survive without oxygen, the soul cannot thrive without prayer. It is not a duty, it is a lifeline. And the moment we understand that, we will never again treat prayer as an afterthought. There is a deep longing in every human heart to be heard, to know that someone is listening, that our words matter. One of the greatest struggles people face is the feeling of being alone, unheard and unseen. You can be surrounded by a crowd and still feel like no one truly understands what's going on inside you. You can sit in a room full of friends and still feel the weight of silent battles that no one else seems to notice. But there is one who hears you, one who has never stopped listening. God hears every whisper of the human soul, every sigh, every cry, every silent thought that words cannot express. He is not distant. He is not indifferent. He is not too busy to care. The idea that God is listening is not just a comforting thought. It is a reality that changes everything. When you begin to understand that the creator of the universe bends his ear to hear your voice, you will pray differently. You will walk differently. Many people hesitate to pray because they wonder, does God really hear me? Does he listen when I speak? Am I just talking to the air? These questions are not new. Throughout history, people have wrestled with the same doubts. Even in the Bible, there were moments when men and women cried out, God, where are you? Are you listening? But time and time again, God proved that he was not only listening, but that he was already moving in response. God is not like people. When we speak to other human beings, they may forget what we said, misunderstand our words, or ignore us entirely. But God listens with perfect attention. He does not miss a single prayer, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. Whether it's a desperate plea in the middle of the night or a simple thank you whispered under your breath, he hears it all. Even when you feel like your prayers are going unanswered, know this. Silence is not absence. Just because you don't see immediate results does not mean God isn't listening. Sometimes he answers in ways we do not expect. Sometimes he is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot yet see. And sometimes his answer is to wait, not because he is ignoring us, but because he knows the perfect time to act. The enemy wants you to believe that your prayers don't matter, that God is too far away, too busy, or too uninterested in your life. But that is a lie. The very moment you speak, heaven hears. You are not talking to empty space. You are talking to a loving Father who knows you better than you know yourself. He hears every fear, every doubt, every hope, and every dream. And when you truly believe that God is listening, you will never pray the same way again. There is a common misconception that prayer must be formal, rehearsed, or filled with religious words to be effective. Many people hesitate to pray because they think they don't know how. They assume they need eloquent phrases or long-winded speeches, as if God is impressed by how well they can put words together. But the truth is, God is not looking for perfection in prayer. He is looking for sincerity. Prayer is not about fancy language. It is about an open heart. Talking to God is the simplest thing in the world, yet so many overcomplicate it. Prayer is not a formula, a ritual, or a performance. It is simply communication with the one who created you. Just as a child speaks to a loving father, you can speak to God without fear, without hesitation, without worrying if you are doing it right. There is no right or wrong way to pour out your heart to God. He understands the words you cannot even say. He sees the tears, the sighs, the unspoken burdens. Some people avoid prayer because they feel unworthy, believing they must fix themselves before approaching God. But if that were true, no one would ever pray. God does not require perfection. He simply invites you to come as you are. If you are joyful, speak to Him in gratitude. If you are confused, ask Him for wisdom. If you are broken, cry out to Him. If you are weak, lean on Him. He already knows what is in your heart, but He longs for you to share it with Him, just as a father longs to hear the voice of his child. Prayer does not have to happen in a church building or at a set time of day. You do not need to kneel or bow your head a certain way. Prayer is as natural as breathing. It can be whispered in the quiet of the morning, spoken in the middle of a busy day, or lifted up in the stillness of the night. You can pray while driving, working, walking, or sitting in silence. God is not confined to a place or a schedule. He is present in every moment, waiting to hear from you. Jesus Himself showed us the simplicity of prayer. When His disciples asked Him how to pray, He didn't give them a complex formula. He gave them a simple, heartfelt example. He showed that prayer is about relationship, not religion. It is about drawing near to God, not impressing Him. The shortest prayer spoken with faith is more powerful than the longest prayer spoken without it. When you let go of the idea that prayer must be complicated, you will find the freedom to speak to God in a way that is real and personal. The beauty of prayer is that it is for everyone, no matter their background, their past, or their level of spiritual understanding. All God asks is that you come to Him just as you are, in your own words, with your own heart, and simply talk. One of the greatest obstacles people face in their prayer life is the belief that they must feel something in order for their prayers to be real. They think that unless they experience a sudden rush of emotion, a deep sense of peace, or an overwhelming spiritual moment, their prayers aren't working. But prayer is not built on feelings, it is built on faith. And faith is trusting in what we cannot see, believing in what we cannot always feel. Feelings are temporary. They shift like the wind. One moment you may feel close to God, and the next you may feel distant. But God's presence is not dictated by your emotions. Just because you don't feel Him doesn't mean He isn't there. Just because you don't hear an immediate answer doesn't mean He isn't listening. This is where faith comes in. Faith is choosing to believe that God is who He says He is, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Imagine a parent teaching a child to walk. At first, the child holds onto their parent's hands, feeling their steady grip. But eventually, the parent lets go so the child can learn to walk on their own. The parent is still there, watching closely, ready to catch them if they fall. But the child might not feel their presence in the same way. This is how it is with God. There are moments when we feel His nearness, and there are moments when He seems silent. But He has not abandoned us. He is still there, still guiding, still listening. Many people allow their faith to rise and fall based on their emotions. When life is good, they feel close to God. When life is hard, they wonder if He has left them. But faith is not based on circumstances. It is based on trust. If we only prayed when we felt like it, we would rarely pray at all. If we only believed when life was easy, our faith would be weak. True faith is believing in God's goodness even when we don't see immediate results. It is trusting that He is working behind the scenes even when everything around us seems uncertain. This is why the Bible tells us to walk by faith, not by sight. If we only relied on what we could see and feel, we would miss out on the deeper work God is doing in our lives. Some of the most powerful prayers are prayed in the middle of doubt, fear, and struggle. They are not prayers of perfect faith, but of persistent faith. The kind that says, Lord, I don't feel you right now, but I trust you. Prayer is not about chasing a feeling. It is about knowing deep in your soul that God is with you, even in the silence. It is about showing up day after day, even when you don't feel anything special. Because faith is not an emotion, it is a decision. And that decision will change your life. Many people approach prayer with hesitation, thinking they must say the right words or follow a certain formula to be heard by God. They believe they need to sound holy, use religious phrases, or avoid expressing doubt, frustration, or sorrow. But God is not looking for polished speeches. He is looking for real, honest conversations. The most powerful prayers are not the most eloquent ones. They are the ones that come from a sincere heart. Honest communication with God means coming to Him just as you are, without pretense or performance. It means talking to Him the same way you would talk to a close friend or a loving father. Too often, people hold back in prayer, thinking they must only bring their praises and gratitude while hiding their struggles. But God already knows what's in your heart. He knows your fears, your doubts, your frustrations, and your failures. He doesn't want you to suppress those things. He wants you to bring them to Him. Throughout the Bible, we see examples of people who spoke to God with raw honesty. David, a man after God's own heart, cried out in anguish, questioned God's timing, and poured out his frustrations. The prophet Jeremiah openly expressed his despair. Even Jesus, in His most painful moment on the cross, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" These prayers were not rehearsed or refined. They were real, and God responded to them. God is not offended by your honesty. He invites it. He already sees the deepest parts of your soul, so there is no need to pretend. When you are angry, tell Him. When you are confused, ask Him questions. When you are struggling, admit it. When you are joyful, celebrate with Him. The power of prayer is not in the words themselves, but in the relationship it builds between you and God. The more honest you are with Him, the deeper that relationship grows. Some people hesitate to bring their struggles before God because they fear His response. They think He will be disappointed, distant, or silent. But God is a loving Father who delights in hearing from His children. Just as a parent wants their child to come to them in both joy and pain, God desires the same from us. He does not turn away those who come to Him with an open heart. In fact, He draws near to the brokenhearted, to those who come to Him in truth. When you stop trying to impress God and start simply talking to Him, everything changes. You begin to experience prayer as a living, breathing conversation rather than a religious duty. You begin to see God not as a distant figure, but as a close and personal friend. And in that honest communication, you will find peace, strength, and a connection with God that transforms your life. Many people pray, but deep down, they don't really expect an answer. They whisper words into the air, hoping God hears them, but doubting that He will respond. They see prayer as a one-sided conversation, where they speak but heaven remains silent. But that is not the nature of God. He is not a distant observer. He is an active listener who responds in ways we often fail to recognize. When we talk to God, we must come with expectation, believing that He not only hears, but that He also answers. God does not ignore His children. He never turns a deaf ear to those who seek Him with a sincere heart. The problem is not that God is silent, but that we often don't recognize His voice. We expect an answer in the form of a loud, unmistakable sign, but God speaks in many different ways. Sometimes He answers through His Word, as a passage of Scripture suddenly comes alive with meaning. Sometimes He speaks through circumstances, opening doors we never imagined, or closing doors we wanted to walk through. Other times, He speaks through the gentle prompting of the Holy Spirit, a deep sense of peace or conviction in our hearts. There are moments when God's answer is immediate, clear, and undeniable. But there are also moments when His answer is to wait. Waiting is not a sign of rejection. It is often God's way of preparing us for something greater than we can see. Just as a good parent does not give a child everything they ask for the moment they ask for it, God's timing is always perfect. He sees the full picture while we only see a small piece. What may seem like silence is often His way of working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances for His greater purpose. Some people struggle with doubt, wondering if their prayers are even reaching God. But faith is believing before we see, trusting before we understand. When we pray, we must come with confidence, knowing that God is faithful to His promises. He may not always answer in the way we expect, but He always answers in the way that is best. Even a no from God is an answer, one that protects us, redirects us, or teaches us something we need to learn. The key to expecting an answer from God is to stay close to Him. The more time we spend in prayer, the more we recognize His voice. The more we trust Him, the more we see His hand at work in our lives. And when we truly believe that God is listening and responding, prayer becomes more than just words. It becomes a life-changing connection with the one who knows us best. Prayer is not just a religious practice. It is the heartbeat of a relationship with God. It is not about following rituals, using perfect words, or feeling something extraordinary every time we speak. It is about coming before a loving Father with faith, honesty, and expectation. It is about understanding that He hears every cry, every whisper, and every unspoken thought. We have seen that prayer is urgent, not something to be pushed aside until trouble comes. We have been reminded that God is always listening, that prayer is far simpler than we often make it, and that our faith must stand firm even when our feelings waver. We have discovered the power of honest communication with God and the importance of expecting Him to answer. So the question remains, will you take that step? Will you begin to talk to God, not as a distant figure, but as the closest friend you could ever have? He is waiting, He is listening, and He is ready to respond. All you need to do is open your heart, speak to Him, and trust that He is near. Let today be the day you stop seeing prayer as an obligation and start experiencing it as a life-giving connection. The moment you do, you will never be the same again.